there is an enemy hiding within your own mind. It isn't loud, it's not easy to detect, and it often disguises itself with sweet words about importance, power, or success. That enemy is the ego. Ego is a dangerous illusion. It makes us believe we are superior, always right, and that failure is always someone else's fault. But in protecting us, ego quietly destroys everything: our relationships, our humility, our ability to learn, and even our own sense of self. The Stoics recognized this long ago. They understood that ego is not something to be celebrated, but something to be controlled. In today's video, we'll peel back the illusion of ego, uncover the truth, learn to let go, and from there, reclaim the power over our emotions, actions, and life. Because if you don't actively destroy the ego, it will gradually erode your inner strength, until there's nothing left but exhaustion and emptiness. 1. Ego is an illusion that deceives the mind. Ego doesn't appear as an obvious enemy. It doesn't knock, doesn't shout, doesn't give orders. Instead, it whispers. It tells you that you're doing better than others, that you deserve better treatment, that it's someone else's fault, that you don't need to change. Ego is a master at crafting a flattering image of yourself, one that's untrue but easy to believe. And it's the comfort ego offers that makes you unwilling to face the truth. It leads you to blind yourself, reject honest feedback, and live more and more inside a shell of your own making. Ego is a special kind of illusion. It makes you believe you're moving forward when you're actually stuck or falling behind. It convinces you that you already know enough, that you're on the right path, that you don't need to learn from anyone, but that's precisely what holds you back. Because learning begins with humility, with admitting, I don't know enough, I might be wrong, I need others to help me grow. Ego won't allow that. It equates being wrong with weakness, changing with failure, and accepting others' input with defeat. That's why it's so dangerous. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Just do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." But ego drives us to do the opposite. It makes us care more about how others perceive us than about what's right or wrong. It leads us to anchor our self-worth in external things like reputation, status, income, or follower count. When ego is in control, you stop living to grow and start living to preserve an image. You stop learning and start performing. You don't act for what's right. You act to be seen as someone who's right. Ego doesn't just mislead you about your own worth, but also about how the world works. It makes you think the world owes you something: recognition, opportunity, a reward. It makes you feel insulted by things that are perfectly normal: a piece of feedback, a moment of silence, a failure. But the world doesn't revolve around you, and the sooner you realize that, the freer you'll live. When you let go of the need to be the most important person in the room, you begin to truly see the people around you and yourself. The trap of ego lies in its subtlety. It's not as obvious as envy or explosive anger. It's more refined, a quiet pride in your humility, a proud silence, a nod given only to be praised as a good listener. Only when you are truly aware do you see this clearly. Ego isn't in the words, but in the motive behind each action. It's in the choice to save face rather than seek truth, to win an argument rather than listen, to protect your reputation rather than pursue growth. 2. Ego destroys growth. Growth doesn't come from age or years on the job. It comes from the ability to honestly examine yourself, to face your mistakes, and to continually adjust in order to become better. But ego doesn't allow that. Ego doesn't care how much you're improving. It only cares whether you maintain the image of being strong and perfect in the eyes of others. It convinces you that admitting flaws is failure, that apologizing is weakness, that changing your stance shows inconsistency, and so it shuts the door to growth from within your own mind. People with a strong ego struggle to receive feedback, not because they can't hear it, but because they can't stand having their flaws pointed out. In a meeting, they'll get defensive instead of listening. They'll assign blame instead of taking responsibility. When others succeed, they'll feel threatened instead of inspired. When they fail, they'll look outward instead of inward. All these reactions stem from an ego that refuses to change and cannot accept the need to learn from scratch. But relearning is the essence of growth, and ego won't accept that. You can see the consequences of ego in daily life. A once excellent manager falls behind because he refuses to learn from younger colleagues. An artist who once created brilliant work becomes irrelevant because she refuses to innovate after early success. A father never apologizes to his child, even when he knows he's wrong, afraid to lose his authority. Ego locks you into an outdated version of yourself, one that may have worked in the past, but no longer fits the present. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca warned, "No one is crushed by adversity who wasn't first lulled to sleep by prosperity." It's in success that ego arises, convincing us that we've arrived, that we no longer need to adjust. But no one ever truly arrives. Life is a constant state of becoming, and if you stop learning, you're falling behind. Maturity is the ability to admit you're not yet complete. It is the courage to shed ego's armor and say, "I was wrong, I don't fully understand," or "Help me get better." When you stay silent to listen to feedback, you're learning. When you accept advice, even if it stings, you're growing. But if ego governs your every response, you'll never experience those moments, the very moments in which a person truly grows. 3. To overcome ego, you must practice separation. Ego doesn't grow in the light of reason. It thrives in unconscious reactions. It lives in moments when you're driven by emotion, when you get angry at criticism, hurt by lack of recognition, or feel compelled to defend your opinion at all costs. And to overcome ego, theory or generic advice isn't enough. You must practice a very specific skill, separating emotion from action, or in other words, creating space between what you feel and how you choose to respond. This small but vital gap is where ego loses its grip, and you begin to reclaim your inner freedom. Separation doesn't mean suppressing emotions, nor does it mean denying them. The Stoics never taught us to be cold, emotionless, or indifferent. They taught us to observe precisely what's happening within, anger, envy, hurt, and to ask, does this emotion reflect the truth? Is it worth sacrificing my peace and reason for? In doing so, you no longer fall victim to impulsive reactions, but become someone who chooses their response with wisdom. Epictetus once said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." That saying reveals a truth. Most suffering in life stems from distorted inner responses, not the events themselves. Rejection doesn't hurt you. It's the thought, "I'm not good enough," that breaks you. A critique doesn't wound you, but the belief, I'm being disrespected, slowly eats away at your confidence. Ego is what binds situations to negative emotions, and through separation, you can break that link. Practicing separation begins with observation. Each time emotion rises, whether it's anger, hurt, or impulse, pause. Don't act immediately. Create a brief silence between the feeling and the response, and in that space, ask yourself, is this the voice of ego? Am I reacting for what's right or just because I feel offended? This question isn't about judging right or wrong, but about reclaiming authorship over your own choices. Separation is where you shift from reacting to responding, from being ruled by emotion to choosing intentional action. It's a form of mental discipline that requires daily practice and patience with yourself. But once it becomes a habit, it allows you to live with steady clarity, untouched by the emotional currents of ego. And at that point, you haven't just overcome ego. You've started to master yourself. A quiet victory, yet one that brings the deepest freedom. 4. Humility is the antidote to ego. Nothing unsettles ego more than humility. Ego wants you to believe you're better than others, that you need recognition, that you must be right, win, and stand above. But humility plays by none of those rules. Humility is quiet. It needs no proof, no argument, no praise. And that's precisely why it is the only thing that can make ego retreat. Humility does not mean belittling yourself or devaluing your worth. On the contrary, humility comes from a grounded understanding of your own limits. A humble person doesn't need to pretend to know everything, because they've realized that knowledge is infinite, and they stand on just a tiny point along the journey. They're not afraid to say, I don't know, because they believe their worth doesn't lie in appearing smart, but in the truth that they are growing each day. The humble don't fear being wrong, because to them, each mistake is a lesson, not an attack on their dignity. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, reminded himself daily that even the greatest among us will one day be forgotten. If the ruler of the world's most powerful empire saw himself as small in the face of the universe, what excuse do we have to be arrogant? When you understand that life is brief and you're just a small part of a vast whole, your voice naturally softens. You stop chasing admiration and start seeking truth. You stop trying to control how others see you and start learning to control yourself. Ego makes you live as if you're the center of the universe. Humility helps you realize you're just passing through this life like everyone else. When you're truly humble, you can look at others without feeling threatened. You can celebrate their success without comparison. You can receive criticism without being crushed. And you can say, I was wrong, without feeling ashamed. That is freedom. That is strength. Humility also makes you more approachable and trustworthy. No one wants to work long-term with someone who always has to be right. But everyone is willing to walk alongside someone who listens, respects, and adjusts. While ego builds walls to protect pride, humility builds bridges to foster connection. And those genuine connections are the foundation of true growth, not just in work, but in your inner life as well. Cultivating humility is not an easy path, because ego will always try to return. It will disguise itself as, I'm just being confident, or I'm defending my principles. But if you're clear-eyed, you'll see it. Humility doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger, deeper, and calmer, because you no longer need to win to be right or to dominate. You only need to live honestly and keep learning, and that, truly, is the path to lasting wisdom. 5. True strength lies not in controlling others, but in controlling yourself. From a young age, we're often taught that strength is tied to our ability to influence others, speaking louder, being assertive, getting others to listen, and bending situations to our will. But that's only a form of external strength, visible yet fragile. The Stoics understood clearly that real strength doesn't lie in commanding the world, but in commanding your own mind, your thoughts, your emotions, and your responses, which no one but you can govern. Ego convinces you that you must dominate conversations, have the last word, be acknowledged as right. But the truth is, the more you try to control others, the more you lose your own stability. When your mind depends on others' reactions to feel worthy, you've given them your power. You might manipulate a debate, but if a single criticism can throw you into anger, then you are not strong. You are fragile. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What he offered wasn't abstract advice. It was a concrete principle for living. You cannot control what happens around you, but you can always choose how to respond. And in that choice, inner strength is forged. A truly strong person isn't someone who never gets angry, but someone who can observe their anger and choose not to act on it. They can remain silent in the face of provocation, not out of weakness, but because they know what's worth preserving. They don't react on impulse, they act according to values. It's a quiet strength, but one more enduring than any external dominance. Today's world glorifies those who win, influence, or dominate the market. But when chaos comes, when betrayal, failure, or loss strikes, you'll see who's truly strong. It's not the loudest person in the room, but the calmest. Not the one who controls others best, but the one who maintains peace within. Self-control is the foundation of discipline, the root of virtue, the gateway to freedom. When you're no longer pulled by fleeting desires, impulsive ego, or volatile emotions, then no matter how chaotic the world is, you stand firm like a mountain. No one can take away the calm you've trained daily. No one can control you if you've already mastered yourself. This kind of strength is not flashy, but it is profound. It isn't built in a day, but in the quiet repetition of small choices. Patience when you want to explode, listening when you want to argue, holding your values when giving up would be easier. Each of these moments is a steady step towards self-mastery, the only strength that no storm in the world can destroy. 6. The illusion of control is ego's deepest attachment. Ego always wants control. It wants everything to go its way, wants others to understand exactly what it means, wants the world to respond as expected. And when reality deviates from the script ego has written, it reacts with anger, hurt, disappointment, or blame. Deep down, ego refuses to accept that so much lies beyond our reach, and it is this refusal that gives rise to suffering. The Stoics saw clearly that we cannot control the world. We can only control our minds. Epictetus once said, "Some things are up to us, and some are not." That simple line forms the foundation of inner freedom. Ego believes the opposite. It lives by the illusion that if we try hard enough, think cleverly enough, push firmly enough, We can control everything, others' feelings, outcomes of effort, even the way the world treats us. But the more we try to control the uncontrollable, the more exhausted, disappointed, and lost we become. The illusion of control makes you overreact to things that don't warrant it. A rejection suddenly feels like a personal attack. A loved one's silence becomes betrayal. A small change of plans ruins the day. Not because these events are inherently severe, but because ego cannot bear the feeling of losing grip. And when ego feels powerless, it blames, it rages, it postures to pretend it's still in charge, even if only on the surface. The solution isn't to control more, it's to let go at the right time. Letting go is not surrender. Letting go is a conscious, intentional act to return to the only thing you truly control, your attitude and your response. When you stop trying to change others and begin changing yourself, you move from being a victim of circumstance to being free within. And in that space, ego no longer survives. Letting go of the illusion of control is a pivotal milestone on the path of growth. It eases your tension, lowers unrealistic expectations, and ends needless battles. You begin to see clearly what is yours to act on and what is yours to accept. And when your focus is solely on what's yours, you become lighter, wiser, more effective. Ego wants you to believe you're only valuable if you can control outcomes. But the truth is, your worth lies in how rightly you live, regardless of the outcome. The Stoics didn't seek control. They sought agency, not over circumstances, but over the mind. And that is a quiet, powerful victory, where ego no longer drives the wheel, and what remains is a free, lucid, unshakable soul. 7. Curiosity is the antidote to arrogance. Arrogance is when we believe we know enough, that we need no more guidance, that our current experience is a solid foundation for every future decision. From the outside, it may look like confidence, but inside, arrogance is a closed state of mind, one that resists learning, rejects change, and denies the truth. Ego thrives in this state because it maintains a flawless image of the self. No cracks, no mistakes, nothing left to learn. But that's exactly where growth stops. The opposite of arrogance is curiosity. Not shallow curiosity, but humble, deep, exploratory curiosity. It's when you look at a different opinion, not to refute it, but to understand it. It's when you ask a question not to show you already know, but to admit you don't. Curious people don't need to be right the first time. They just want to understand better after each conversation. And that's what makes them fast learners, forward movers, and alive in thought. Socrates once said, "I know that I know nothing." That statement didn't diminish him in others' eyes. It made him one of the greatest symbols of wisdom, because wisdom doesn't begin with assertion, but with inquiry. The more deeply someone learns, the more silent they often become, not because they have nothing to say, but because they see how much they still don't know. And in that silence, curiosity quietly opens the next door to growth. Ego tells you that you must have the answer. Curiosity lets you live in the question. Ego makes you feel ashamed of being wrong. Curiosity makes you excited to find a gap in your understanding. Curiosity doesn't weaken you. It makes you adaptable, mentally agile, and deeper in thought. In a constantly changing world, arrogance leaves you behind, while curiosity keeps you evolving, adjusting, and ready to transform. Practicing curiosity is training yourself in a mindset of openness. It's the ability to listen to someone unlike you, to read a book outside your field, to ask questions even when you think you already know the answer. Curiosity turns every experience, even failure, misunderstanding, or conflict, into a chance to learn something new about people, about life, and about yourself. When you replace arrogance with curiosity, you not only learn more, you live more lightly. You no longer need to be defensive, to protect an image, or to win every argument. You only need to learn, to understand, and to grow, bit by bit. And that quiet progress is the most enduring victory, not over others, but over the closed-off ego within you. 8. Stillness is the ultimate weapon against ego. Ego hates stillness, because in stillness, the things we've tried to avoid become visible. In noise, ego is fed by praise, by argument, by instant reaction, and the need to speak, to prove, to do something that validates our worth. But when you sit in silence, no eyes watching, no applause, no rebuttal, just you and yourself, ego starts to lose its grip. It doesn't know what to do in that space because stillness gives it no stage. And that is where the power of stillness lies. Stillness here is not just outer silence, but inner calm. It's when you don't react immediately, don't argue instantly, don't rush into action just because emotion pushes you. The Stoics called this the space between stimulus and response, where you pause, observe yourself, and choose whether to act. In that moment, ego loses control, and reason begins to speak. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." That soul is not a place to escape life, but the place to confront it with honesty, without defenses, without pretenses. When you spend time in stillness each day, even just 5 or 10 minutes, you train your ability to distinguish between the voice of ego and the voice of reason. You learn to slow down in order to see more clearly, to hear more fully, to understand yourself more deeply. Ego always wants you to react right away. It wants you to fire back a sharp reply, to speak out when misunderstood, to act in ways that prove you're not weak. But a person with inner strength doesn't act out of impulse. They act with intention. They understand that instant reactions are often driven by pride, while calm responses come from maturity, and that maturity can only be built by stepping into stillness again and again to reflect. Practicing stillness isn't easy, especially in a noisy world, but that's exactly why it's a powerful act. When you can sit quietly without scrolling your phone, stay silent when criticized, smile when no one is watching, you display a form of control ego will never achieve. Because ego always needs an audience, but stillness frees you from external validation. Stillness doesn't make you invisible. It makes you grounded. In that stillness, you're not dragged around by emotion, not ruled by ego, and not trying to prove anything. You're simply present, observant, and deliberate. And each deliberate choice is a step further from the shadow of ego, and closer to mastery and inner peace. A place no one can take from you unless you give it away. 9. Facing discomfort is how we weaken the ego. Ego feeds not only on admiration, but also on comfort. It hates uncertainty, unfamiliarity, and difficulty. It urges you to avoid situations that expose your true limits, a rejection, a critical comment, an unfamiliar task, or simply someone's silence. Anything that makes you uncomfortable, ego will try to justify, delay, or retreat from. because it knows that within discomfort lies a truth it doesn't want to face. You're not perfect, you're still weak, and you need to change. But it is exactly within discomfort that real growth happens. No one grows when everything is pleasant, convenient, and familiar. You can't develop calm without pressure. You can't learn to listen if you've never been misunderstood. You can't build courage without standing in front of fear. And all these experiences, big or small, come with the very discomfort ego despises. The Stoics did not avoid difficulty. They deliberately stepped into discomfort to train the mind. Seneca slept on stone floors and lived with austerity despite being a wealthy noble, not to punish himself, but to master his desires and reduce dependence on comfort. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning that he would encounter rude, greedy, arrogant people, not to be discouraged, but to prepare to meet them with reason and calm. To them, discomfort wasn't the enemy. It was the proving ground of inner strength. When you deliberately face what makes you uncomfortable, speaking into public, hearing hard truths, admitting you were wrong, you are doing something vital. You are weakening the ego. Because ego is only strong when you step back. Each time you push through embarrassment, ego loses a bit of its power. Each time you remain calm amidst negative reactions, you refuse to let ego lead. And over time, these small acts become the foundation of real steadiness and maturity. Not everyone is born liking discomfort, but anyone who wants to live deeply and freely must learn to live with it. Start with small things. Try doing something you've always avoided. Accept a piece of feedback you usually dismiss. Stay quiet when your instinct wants to react. Each such act is not just a test of will, but a way to peel back the layers of ego from your mind. Discomfort is the threshold between your current self and your better self. Ego wants you to stop at that door, but if you have the courage to step through, what awaits you on the other side is not insecurity, but self-control, adaptability, and an inner strength that no praise could ever give you. 10. True strength is inner stability. True strength is not loud. It doesn't come from dominating others or from external power, fame, or status. It isn't shown by a booming voice, persuasive charm, or the ability to control every situation. True strength is inner stability, a steady mental state, unmoved by praise or criticism, undisturbed by wins or losses, and unshaken by life's sudden turns. It is the quiet mountain in the storm, a sanctuary the outside world cannot touch. Ego, by contrast, builds a superficial kind of strength, one based on how others see you, what you achieve, and how well you perform. But that kind of strength is fragile. It demands constant validation, endless affirmation, and collapses the moment expectations aren't met. One criticism can destroy your confidence. One small failure can break your will, because your entire sense of worth rests in the hands of others. Inner stability needs no outside approval, because it is built from within, where you understand yourself, steer yourself, and control how you respond to life. Marcus Aurelius emphasized, you must master your mind, or your mind will master you. Because the mind is the source of every reaction and the only thing you truly control. When you cultivate inner stability, you no longer need to prove anything, no longer react impulsively to attacks, no longer chase after every fleeting up or down. You live by principle, regardless of whether conditions favor you or not. You keep your word even when no one is watching. You act with reason even when emotion surges, and you remain composed even when what you cannot control is shifting all around you. Inner stability does not mean apathy or emotional numbness. It is the result of clearly understanding what lies within your control, what does not, and accepting both without resistance. A stable person is not someone who never gets hurt, but someone who isn't ruled by hurt. They can feel sadness and still do what is right. They can feel disappointed and still stay rational. And they can fail without ever losing their sense of worth. I used to think that a strong ego would take me further, that refusing to lose, always needing recognition, and trying to control everything were signs of decisiveness. But after every exhausting argument, every wound from feedback, and every moment of insecurity when others succeeded, I came to understand that wasn't strength. It was ego running the show. Only when I began to remain silent in the face of my first reaction, when I started writing down uncomfortable emotions instead of responding immediately, did I realize that stability isn't about controlling others. It's about not letting others control your emotions. Ego doesn't vanish in a day, but each time I choose humility, accept being wrong, or dare to listen a bit more, I feel lighter, calmer, and truly stronger. And that's the journey I continue to walk every day. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next content. And always remember, you don't need to be great in others' eyes. You just need to be steady within your own mind, because that's where real strength begins. See you in the next video.